The next part of lighting that I want you to be thinking about is process and method. What process do we go through when we're doing lighting, and what methods can we use to actually do the lighting? Process-wise, what I want you to remember is that you should always be thinking about your close-ups. Close-ups are your most important shots in a scene in terms of your characters and your acting. It's where it's really critical that you have good lighting, and so to begin with, when you start to film in a particular scene, where will that camera be for shooting the close-ups of however many characters you're going to be getting close-ups of? Where's that camera going to go? And then once you know where the camera is going to go, you can start to figure out where to put your lights in order to get those close-ups to look the way you need them to. And if you light for the close-ups, usually that's going to be acceptable for your wide shots unless those lights are like on top of the person. But you need to know where the lights will be coming from for the close-ups, and then you sort of extrapolate from that to figure out where they should go for the wide shots so that they match. Alright, so that's, always be thinking about your close-ups and where the lights are going to go for those, and then try to work your wider shots and the lights to match that. Alright, methods. There are 3 methods that I want you to remember for lighting a scene in video. The most common method is what we call 3-point lighting. 3-point lighting is going to take, you guessed it, 3 lights. They each have their own specific purpose, and they will fulfill that purpose, and sometimes you need a different lighting instrument to do those different jobs. The first light is what we call the key light. Now the key light represents whatever the primary light source in a scene is. So if you're in an exterior, your primary light source is probably the sun, although it could be the moon, or it could be an outside light, an exterior light of some kind. But most of the time, if you're doing exteriors, it's probably the sun. So that would be your key light in an exterior. In an interior, it could be whatever lights are in a particular room. It could be the sun again if you're using the window as your key light. If the window is a key light, then the sun streaming in the window, if that's going to be your primary light source, then that would be your key light. But whatever it is, it's the primary light source. It's where light supposedly is coming from in the scene. The second light that we're going to look at is the fill light. Now the fill light is going to be 90 degrees from the key light approximately. That's about where you want to put it. So if the key light is coming at your subject from one place, you're going to move 90 degrees from that, and around there is where you would put your fill light. And it will be set approximately 50% of what the key light is. It's not supposed to be equal to the key light. And the fill light's job is a little different. What it is meant to do is to lessen the shadows that the key light creates. Now, because we want it to look three-dimensional with 3-point lighting, we do not want to eliminate the shadows, because as we mentioned before, shadows are what give you 3 dimensions, otherwise it looks flat. So the fill light is meant to lessen them, not erase them, just lessen them, so that they aren't very ugly to look at. We want to be able to still see where the shadow is. We just don't want it to totally turn black, which it could with video. The last light is the backlight. The backlight is going to obviously go behind the subject somewhere. It will be set at approximately 2/3 the power of your key light, and its purpose is to separate the subject from the background. People cannot tell visually that the person standing in front of a background isn't all the way back by the background necessarily. So the lighting, it kind of gives them a little bit of a halo effect. It hits them kind of in the back of the head. It's going to separate them, and it'll make it clear that they are not part of the background visually. Because remember, we're trying to create 3 dimensions in what is a 2-dimensional, picture. people watch this on a screen in a movie theater or they watch it on a screen in their home. Either way, it's flat, unless you're in a 3D movie, which is not that often. And so there's nothing to separate it from the background, but the lighting can help us give that illusion to the audience. And that is the third light in 3-point lighting. Now I've got a little diagram here where you can kind of see the placement of each of these 3 lights. So key, fill, and back. 3-point lighting, the most common method of lighting a scene in a video production. But it's not the only method. There are a couple other methods that are sometimes useful. So the second method I want to look at is what we call soft lighting. Now soft lighting is where we do kind of want to erase shadows. The whole purpose of soft lighting is to create a minimal depth and texture, minimal surface detail, and minimal wrinkles. So as an example, let's say you had an older actor, but you wanted them to look younger, and you didn't have a budget for, CGI magic and going in and making them look like their younger self. One thing you can do, besides makeup, of course, is to light them with softer lighting and minimize the wrinkles. That way we see less of the shadows. You're going to get a flatter picture, so it's a trade-off. But there are times when you want to give a softer appearance. You can see this really obviously in a lot of the old movies. This just used to be standard practice for lighting your female leads in movies in order to make them look pretty and beautiful in a movie. It wouldn't match at all with the other shots, but you would see that they were almost in a soft focus, and they would use softer lighting in these scenes in like movies from the 30s and the 40s. Black and white movies, which means you may not have seen them, but it was very common practice. Well, how can you achieve this soft lighting? There's a few ways that you can do that. One is to simply do your 3-point lighting, but have your fill light cranked all the way up so that it erases the shadows. That would be flat lighting, and that will give you a softer lighting appearance. Another way is to use an umbrella reflector. I know you've seen these when they take your pictures for the yearbook, for instance. They have all these umbrella reflectors. If you bounce light off of an umbrella reflector, it's going to diffuse the light all over the place, and you're going to get fewer shadows. And then another way is actually using a diffuser, which is something that you actually put in front of the light. You put it over the light, like a gauzy material, for instance, and the light goes through it and it spreads it out, and that will also give you a softer lighting effect. So that's how you can achieve the soft lighting effect. 3 ways you can do it anyway. The third method of lighting is silhouette lighting. Silhouette lighting is where we will use only backlight for the subject. So instead of seeing them, you will see their outline, a dark outline of the person. Now, in general, this is something we don't want. In fact, it's something that I score you down on your productions. When you have somebody standing in the hallway and you have bright light behind them and you can't see their face. That's because they are completely backlit, and so we can't really see the detail of their face, and they are the subject, so we should be able to see that. But there are occasions when you might want to use silhouette lighting on purpose. An example might be when you're trying to conceal a person's identity. We want to know that somebody broke into a room, but we don't want to know who broke into the room. So if we see it in silhouette, then all we know is somebody broke in, but we don't know who. That would be an example of where silhouette lighting would be appropriate. So sometimes it has its uses. Most of the time it's something we want to avoid. But every now and then, for the purposes of a particular story, there might be a reason to use silhouette lighting. And so these are 3 methods to use when you are lighting a scene.